You're listening to the Flickcast, a pop culture podcast about stuff nerds love. I'm Chris Ulrich, and with me, as always, my esteemed co-host, Joe Dilworth. Joe, welcome back, man. I'm glad you're back.
Thanks. Sorry I missed last week. It was a very exciting show, and I feel bad that I missed it, but, you know, real life sometimes intrudes upon things, so, you know.
Well, it's okay, because I told everybody during the episode that you weren't gone permanently, that nothing bad had happened to you, and you were going to come back, and I was right.
Oh,
so
excellent.
That's good.
You didn't...
One for me.
You didn't tell them about my little side gig of dressing up like Little Bo Peep or anything, right? So...
No.
Okay.
But
good.
You just did.
Oh, darn it. Yes.
Let that out of the closet? Anyway.
Yes.
No, I just told me you were gone for the week. Sometimes you have to do things, and then you come back, so it's all good.
And I am here. Behold.
Ashley was a great guest, but, I'm glad you're back, like I said. And we have a new guest this week, and it's very exciting. He is the co-host of the Homework Podcast on the 5x5 Network. He's also a writer and a content creator and the dungeon master of my Tuesday night D&D game, so I better be nice to him. Please welcome to the show, Dave Caolo. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. Hey, Mike and Joe.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
Welcome.
I'm doing very, very well.
Dave, when I thought about you having you on the show, I was very, I was like, well, Dave can come on. We can talk about working at home. We can talk about gadgets. We can talk about, nerdy stuff like that, and maybe some gift ideas because Christmas is coming up. But then Disney and Marvel unloaded basically a ton of shit. So I kind of feel like we have to address that now, the sort of 50-pound mouse in the room, as it were. So
I'm happy to talk about it.
If you don't mind nerding out a bit, I'd appreciate that.
I think I can handle nerding out a bit, yes.
I think you can. So, all right, let me go to the notes here, and because I prepared so well for this show as I do all shows.
Well, it's kind of crazy because obviously.
Oh, you go ahead, Joe. You go ahead and speak. I was finished.
No, that's okay. I like talking over you. That's okay. See,
you do. It's okay.
I take a week off and I totally get out of the whole rhythm. I don't know.
That's all right, baby. You go for it.
Well, no, but it's cool though because we, as everyone knows, did not get a actual San Diego Comic-Con this year, but Disney decided that they would use an investor call to have a mini Comic-Con essentially. So why not, right?
Well, exactly, and that's why do you need a Comic-Con? Although the nice thing about Comic-Con is going and experiencing everything as a group. I think with everybody, that's why I always enjoyed it. Although that's also the bad thing about Comic-Con, especially now. But yeah, you're right. They just said let's have an investor call and let's unload. Let's give you every possible show we're ever going to do over the next couple of years. So I was just going to pull up a list just so we can just know kind of what we're talking about.
Sure.
Although everybody probably who's listening to this has already heard this, but. So we did get another WandaVision trailer. We got a Falcon and Winter Soldier trailer, which was cool.
Yes.
A Loki trailer, and then news about a Hawkeye show. I'm going to do the Marvel kind of shit first.
Yeah.
Hawkeye premiering on Disney Plus with Haley Steinfeld. Nice.
Yep.
The What If animated show. A bunch. Let's see. What else is there? Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel 2's coming out. Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. I know you're excited about that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Guardians 3. And then a full-on movie, Black Panther 2, maybe. A third Ant-Man, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which we already knew about. And then there was also a bunch of Star Wars stuff, which is crazy, too. 2 spinoffs from The Mandalorian, Rangers of the New Republic and Ashoka. Star Wars The Bad Batch, Andor, Rogue One, from Diego Luna from Rogue One.
Yep.
Hayden Christensen returning in the Obi-Wan show?
As Darth Vader.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I had a question about that, but we'll get to that in a second.
Sure.
A new Lando show, and then movies, too. Rogue Squadron, directed by Patty Jenkins of Wonder Woman fame, and then a Taika Waititi movie, a Star Wars movie, too.
Well, there's also another Star Wars show that is, I can't remember. See, it's my turn to forget stuff because I didn't make notes.
Okay.
But there was another one that was kind of a mystery show that takes place towards the end of the High Republic. Back in the past of the Star Wars universe, that sounds.
That's the Acolyte.
Yes,
right?
Acolyte. Yes, exactly. So
that's the Russian doll creator Leslie Headland. God, I can't even speak.
Yeah,
Leslie Headland. There we go.
Yes.
Set in the High Republic. All right, so maybe we should do with the Star Wars stuff first. Did you watch any of the Star Wars trailers?
I did. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't want to be that guy who complains about Star Wars. I'm excited, of course, because I'm a big Star Wars fan. That's my whole thing. I just wish that, well, I don't know. That's sort of. I wish we didn't lean so heavily on legacy characters.
Yes.
I'm enjoying The Mandalorian so much because it's fresh and new. I mean, I understand that it's in the universe, so certain things are going to exist. But at the same time, like an Obi-Wan series and so on and so on. I mean, it's a galaxy. There has to be an infinite number of stories that can be told on planets that we haven't visited or fully explored. But at the same time, I understand that nostalgia is a very, very powerful thing, and we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, they have to lean on those characters. I mean, they need existing characters probably to bring in the numbers or bring in the people, because
sure.
New stuff is riskier, right? I mean, they can't just make all new shows and then people just don't understand what they are and they're not going to be interested in them. Although there seems to be they're kind of intertwining a few things. Like the Acolyte show is not a new show. I mean, it's not a show from existing characters. And then I don't know that Rogue Squadron, I mean, that's one of the movies. I mean, I know what Rogue Squadron is, but I don't know what that's supposed to be about exactly. And the unannounced or the unknown Taika Waititi movie, maybe it's just an IG-88 origin story or something.
That would be awesome. I'd be
I'm in for that, yes.
He didn't play IG-88 though. What was his IG?
It was IG-11, I think. Yeah.
IG-11. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it'd be great to see new characters because originally Star Wars was all new, right? And so why do we have to keep tapping into the existing stuff? But I mean, from a business perspective, unfortunately, it makes sense. And Disney is a business, so
yep, I understand.
They're going to do what's best for the bottom line. So, Joe, what did you watch, and how was your reaction to all this stuff?
Well, starting with the Star Wars stuff. I'm pretty excited. I'm really, really interested in seeing Patty Jenkins' film, just because I think she's a fantastic director. And I am finally, I wrote an article for another publication not many years ago, but a few years ago, advocating that it was time to hire a female to direct a Star Wars film. And now we're finally getting it, which is great. And I think actually, now I have to go back and reread it. I think Patty Jenkins is someone I advocated for at the time. So I'm very excited to see that. I agree with Dave that it does seem to be a big reliance on established characters and established eras. The Rogue Squadron, though, is, according to the description, takes place after Rise of Skywalker. So that should be interesting. So I'm kind of interested to see how they further the story that way. But I am kind of a sucker for kind of what happened between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. So that's why Mandalorian is huge. It's great because that's a 30-year span that we pretty much know nothing about unless you're a fan of the legacy novels and bought into all that, which those are great too. But that Mandalorian is still kind of skewing towards. I mean, we brought back Boba Fett. We've got Ahsoka and Bo-Katan from Clone Wars in there and things like that. So, but somehow in that show it works out and feels really nice. I'm really curious about this kind of shared universe TV thing they're building between Mandalorian, the Ahsoka series, and the Rangers of the New Republic. Boy, that's a mouthful for a title. So, and they promise that that's kind of building and going to intertwine into some other huge story. So, of course, I'm on board for that, being a Marvel fan and shared universe fan. So, no, I think that's all really cool. Probably, other than the Patty Jenkins film, the biggest thing I'm most excited about is this unknown Acolyte show that takes place in the past. Again, revisiting the past, but it is another era of Star Wars we really don't know much about. So,
so there's a chance for characters we don't know about or anything like that. So these maybe existing situations and existing times can lead us to new adventures. I mean, I love Mando. I think they're doing a lot of great things, and I still think that every time Boba Fett's on the screen, it's just basically a big fuck you to George. Every time he does, it's like, man, this is the character who's supposed to be cool. It's not supposed to be an idiot who falls into a fucking, Sarlacc pit and dies. He's supposed to be cool. Look at all the cool shit he could do.
Yeah.
He can blow stuff up.
Stormtroopers' helmets to bits.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I know that I don't know if everybody's watched the last episode that's listening, but he does some pretty cool shit in this last episode, especially in the Slave One. I mean, he's very accomplished and a lot more of a badass, like he was supposed to be, you know. So anyway, I just think that that Favreau and Filoni were both not happy with the way Boba was treated. And now, I mean, yeah, it's gigantic fan service, but so what? I don't mind that bit of it, but I always liked Boba Fett as a character too, so I'm just weird that way. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. The question I had though, one question I had was like, Hayden Christensen coming back as Darth Vader, if it's during the timeline that it sounds like it's coming into or going to take place in, he's just in the armor at that point, right?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, it's like, who cares who is in the armor? Because if he takes like the helmet off, then he's just going to be kind of this burnt guy, and it's going to be kind of
But more
weird,
importantly, who will have the high ground during that show?
The fans will. No.
But yeah, so is he going to do the voice? Or is he going to be in the armor and the suit and just walk around?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know.
There's got to be like flashbacks and stuff. I
Well,
would imagine,
you know,
right?
maybe it's like, you know, Obi-Wan is in his isolation on Tatooine, and maybe, you know, he has an imaginary friend who happens to be Anakin that is goading him, or, you know, maybe it's kind of like his lure to the dark side while he's in isolation. I don't know. We'll see. But they did specify he was going to be Darth Vader, so I don't know.
We can see Obi-Wan watching over young Luke from a distance, too.
Right.
So it's like he wouldn't be a Force ghost, right? I mean,
Well, as long as they don't make it creepy. Like, why is this old guy in the desert, like, checking out this
in
kid
front of the elementary school?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me show you my lightsaber, son.
Oh, slow down. Uncle Owen warned me about you.
It's the ancient weapon of the Jedi. What's that? It's a group of Oh, anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. It's great. Hayden Christensen, cool, but it's just, I'm not sure how they're going to make that work, but I feel like they must have a plan, you would think, right? I mean, they have to have a plan.
Yeah. Are you guys surprised Hayden said yes? I mean, people so universally panned his performance.
Maybe they my thinking is that they kind of sold this to him as, you know, they gave him an idea of what they want to do, and maybe it's, I don't want to say redemption, but maybe it's like, we're not George, we'll actually direct and write you well, and give you an opportunity to maybe take back a little bit of dignity for that character and for yourself. I don't know. But yeah,
look what we've done with Boba Fett.
Exactly. So, you know, maybe
that's possible. Yeah. I mean, I don't always blame the actor for bad performances, though. As Joe, you and I have talked about this before. A lot of times it's the direction, or it's the writing or whatever. Because he's been good in other things, Hayden Christensen. So you're probably right, though. They probably said, yeah, look what we've done to, with Boba Fett, and look what we're doing with this stuff. There's no reason why not to come back. And let's be honest, what is Hayden Christensen really doing these days? I mean, has he been busy? I don't know. So
yeah,
he was probably available.
Well, and, you know, more along the lines of what Dave was saying, it's such a rich universe, and there's all these characters that have been alluded to or that we've seen only snippets of. So to have a whole, you know, series on Obi-Wan and now Lando, I'm like, well, I don't really understand that reasoning. It's like, I don't think there is anyone going, yeah, Donald Glover was great as Lando, we need a whole series. I think it was more like, no, if he's in a second Han Solo movie, that would be great. But I don't know that we need 10 episodes or 8 episodes or whatever of him being I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope to be proven wrong. So
that's why I'm torn on the Obi-Wan Vader idea. Like, it is an interesting time period because, like you said, he's in the suit. Obi-Wan is in his self-imposed exile, so I don't really know what they're going to do, but I'm interested to find out. But at the same time, between the original trilogy, Clone Wars, Rebels, haven't we seen enough of Obi-Wan and Vader/Anakin together?
Yeah.
Like, what else can they do?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, A New Hope kind of made it seem like they hadn't really seen each other since, you know, their big battle. So I mean, I get the whole a certain point of view thing, and continuity and, you know, memory and stuff like that are kind of thrown out the window.
That old chestnut, a certain point of view.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like, to me, that kind of lessens their whole battle at the end of A New Hope, you know, so I don't know. Like I said, I hope to be proven wrong, and I hope it is amazing. I'm not that excited by it. that's
Well, I know they're going to definitely make the show. So
yes,
even Ewan McGregor said, "Yeah, we're definitely filming in 2022." So I feel like they've got so much money, and they've got so much money invested in the Star Wars franchise and the IP for Star Wars that they're just going to make these shows because they, in the end of the day, they can make 8 episodes of Obi-Wan, and if it doesn't work out, they can just say, well, it was a limited series, and now we're done. So they could do that. They can throw a lot of stuff against the wall, which is kind of what it seems like they did, and see what sticks, and what stuff that doesn't stick can just go away. So I think they've proven, and I say they, but I really mean Favreau and Filoni, but I think that they've proven that they can make a series and have high production value like a movie, but do it for a price. Because I don't know that Mando is super expensive. So I think that it really is a case of, here, let's just try all these things, like an Andor show. Like, I like the character in Rogue One, but I don't know if I need to see an entire series about Cassian Andor. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everyone loves Diego Luna. I love Diego Luna, but I don't know if I need to see a series about it, Cassian Andor. Well, but we're getting one.
See, if I can be a hypocrite, I'm going to say that I'm actually excited about that one because I did like the character, and they're including, Alan Tudyk as K2S2. I don't know. I forget what that.
K2SO.
Yeah, I was going to chime in and say that I don't care about that character, but as long as Alan Tudyk is in it, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah. So that I'm actually very interested in. Again, though, it's an example of a character that we got to see briefly, and it's like, now we're going to show you how they became who they are, and I'm like, all right, I'm on board with that. But like Dave said, Obi-Wan, through Clone Wars and all the movies, it's like I think we've gotten enough of him. Kind of almost the same with Lando. I mean, we know. I don't know. Is it going to be like a office comedy show with him on Bespin or something? I mean, it's like, what?
Dude, that would be fun. I would totally watch that.
So if they're going to do something different along those lines, maybe. But I'm just like, I don't know.
I think it should be Donald Glover. I think it should be Lando just picking new capes every episode. Which cape will I wear today? This is the cape room. I have an entire cape vault now, and the cape floor of my castle on Bespin. Yeah, that's a good point though. I loved Donald Glover as Lando, but yeah, I don't know. Although it says it's an event series, so I wonder if that means there's going to be some sort of crossover where old and young Lando are together, or because they did kind of set something up at the end of the last Star Wars movie where Lando goes, maybe you're my daughter, I don't know.
Right.
So who knows what that's going to be. Maybe it's going to be her. Maybe she's in the show. We don't really know. So, But yeah, I mean, you're right though.
Series also.
Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Event series also made me think 8 episodes and we're done.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, they just do something special and get it done. But Joe, you made an interesting point about K2SO. I was thinking about this the other day, actually. The androids, some of the androids in the Star Wars saga are very heroic, and they also sacrifice themselves a lot of the times for humans. I thought that was, I don't know why I thought that was interesting, but that's happened several times. I mean, look at Mando, he blew himself up, just to save everybody. So,
well, we're getting a droid animated series too, with R2 and 3PO shepherding a new hero droid.
That's right. So what about Rangers of the New Republic and Ashoka? Are we interested in those things? Did we talk about that stuff already? We didn't talk about Ashoka.
I think we briefly touched on it. I'm definitely excited because Mandalorian is just a fantastic show. I know there's been a lot of criticism that it's like, well, it doesn't seem to kind of go anywhere, and it's just like he's doing side quests every episode. But I really like the appeal of this hardened mercenary character who's decided he's going to try to be the best dad ever. I mean, that's just kind of cool. And
he's totally committing to the dad role, definitely.
Yeah, and they've certainly, especially in the second season, kind of opened up the universe around him. And so to have some shows that kind of branch off some of those characters, and then kind of dovetail around each other, like they said, leading up to some other kind of major story that they want to tell. I'm all for that world building and doing that. So yeah, I'm definitely on board for those.
But I don't know if Rangers of the New Republic is something that I am familiar with enough to be either happy or sad. I'm neutral on that one. I do like the idea of an Ashoka show, because that was a mouthful to say. I'm sorry I even tried to do that.
Yes.
I feel like if I'm going to be cynical for a second, I feel like that is part of the overall Rosario Dawson deal to play her in The Mandalorian. Sure. It's like, oh, we'll also give you a series because you're too big of a name just to play this for 1 or 2 episodes. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how Hollywood works. So, but again, that's one of those things where if the show does poorly, they only have to do 1 season probably, unless they gave her more than 1 season, which is possible, I guess. But
well, and the other cool thing about the Ahsoka show, you're right, it is a mouthful to say, is...
The Ahsoka show?
Yes.
Yeah, it's tough.
Is that, I mean, they kind of flash forward at the end of the Rebels animated series with Ahsoka and Bo-Katan being on a quest to find, Ezra... and all that kind of stuff. And so it's been alluded that her appearance now in Mandalorian kind of takes place before that. So it's like there is a story left to tell with that character past Clone Wars and Rebels. So if this show kind of feeds into that and then at some point, kind of concludes that story for people that have been following the character all this time, that'll be kind of satisfying and it'll be kind of nice. So,
Yeah, I haven't been following. You guys have watched Clone Wars and all that stuff? I have not watched that. So, okay. So what is this one story you're talking about that they haven't told then?
Like I just said, there's a, kind of a Jedi in training character, Ezra Bridger, at the end of Rebels, that was kidnapped and taken away by Grand Admiral Thrawn, who was mentioned in the Ahsoka episode. And Bo-Katan and Ahsoka pledged themselves to go find him and bring him back. And they kind of flash forward to an indeterminate point in the future of the Star Wars saga that still had those two looking for him. So it's kind of an unresolved plot point from the end of Rebels.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was misunderstanding you. So that makes sense because she asked about him.
Yes,
in Mando, and
Thrawn,
so yeah, they could. So that maybe that means Katie Sackhoff's got a chance to be on that show too.
Yeah, I'd be all for that as well. I mean, she's got her own series on Netflix, but if she is able
she could do both.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's great. It's good for her. I like Katie Sackhoff. I hope she gets more work. I like to watch her. She's got a great. I mentioned this before, I know, but I love her YouTube channel. It's very fun.
Well, the whole thing is kind of that's a popular fan theory right now because Filoni, of course, ran Clone Wars and Rebels and is running these shows, so it makes sense that he would want to, finally complete his story, complete the circle. I don't know.
Exactly.
I tried a Darth Vader voice.
Well, that's good.
Lame, so.
That was horrible. So, Dave, are you a fan of? I mean, we can talk about Star Wars more, and we can talk about Marvel, but you haven't seen as many Marvel things probably, so that wouldn't be fair. But are you a fan of like Dune and things like that?
Yeah, I loved the original Dune when I was young, and it's actually a very, very good board game too.
It is. Yeah, you told me that before. Nice. I believe you. So, but the reason I ask is, of course, besides all the Star Wars news and all the Marvel news, which we're not going to talk about it this second, but there's also a whole thing with HBO Max and Warner Brothers. HBO Max and Warner Brothers are going to get all the new Warner films that they were going to come out in theaters, including Dune and including Wonder Woman, which is coming out at Christmas. But, I mean, people seem to be upset about this, especially like some of the directors of the films. Would you watch Dune at home, or would you hold out for the theater, do you think? Either one of you guys can answer. It's okay.
I just don't know when we're going to get into a theater again.
Yeah,
honestly,
exactly.
I mean, here in Massachusetts, it's like we basically have to be home by 10. We can't gather in groups of 5 or more.
Right.
And I just don't see that ending anytime soon. And I think over the last, whatever it is, 8 or 9 months at this point, maybe more, I think people have gotten accustomed to watching sort of, like big titles in their home. And I don't know. I mean, there's certainly a certain movie you would love to see on a big screen or an IMAX screen. Dune is right at the top of that list. But I'd be okay with watching it at home. I might miss it a little bit because, the grandeur is lost on my television. But I'll still do it.
Well, yeah, it's better than the alternative, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I can understand, someone like Denis Villeneuve being upset about, not being able to see his movie in the theater. I get that. And Nolan, of course, is a big deal about, or makes a big deal about that too. Unfortunately, Tenet didn't end up doing that well, but
that's the thing that bugs me about that. I'm like, dude, they decided to honor your wishes with your movie, and it didn't do that well in the theaters because nobody's going and because movie theaters are closing. And he also recently just said that he's a huge fan of the Fast and the Furious movies, especially Tokyo Drift. So I'm kind of not taking what he has to say seriously. I mean, come on.
His judgment is suspect.
Yes.
Although I do like Tokyo Drift. Have you seen it? It's probably the best. I think it's my favorite.
It's actually okay. I mean,
it's not
I'm secretly kind of a fan of the Fast and Furious movies. They're popcorn kind of fun movies.
Well, you also like Transformers movies too, so it's like,
so what do I know?
So I don't know. Why am I listening to you exactly? But the question is though, I think a huge movie fan, and I think that movies cinematical films should be seen in a theater to experience them, because that's the way they're designed and that's the way they're photographed, and the sound is made that way to be experienced in a theater. But I will watch Dune at home. I will watch anything at home in this situation. I won't enjoy it maybe as much. Will I miss something? Yes, maybe. But I can always go back and watch it in the theater later, because I'm sure that they'll re-release them when they can.
Sure.
But they are going to be in the theaters also, right? Because the window is HBO Max for, I don't know what they said, like a month or something, and then it's theatrical, or it's so. Maybe things will get better and we can go.
You just can't expect that they're going to sit on these multi-million-dollar movies for a indeterminate period of time. I mean, they got to make their money back, and if they can do that by luring subscribers to their service, that's what we're going to do. I mean, we've talked about this multiple times, that as magical and creative as everyone likes to envision the movie industry being, it is a business, and they got to recoup their money. And I don't know, Patty Jenkins was a little bit more sanguine about it, going, I'm just happy that people are going to be able to see this movie in a wide audience, as opposed to it being constantly pushed back. And I agree with her that, because, to Dave's point, I don't know when I'm going to feel comfortable going back to the theater, but I do want to see these movies. So if they're going to stream them at home and I can pay a subscription to see them, it's hard to argue with that, right? So
I wanted to ask you guys, with all that in mind, I wonder if, do you think we'll see a resurgence of the mid-budget movie? Like films that don't need to bring in $800 million to be successful.
I was actually thinking about that just today. I had a discussion with a friend of mine about that, and I wonder if all of this is going to see kind of the decline of the $250 million blockbuster 4 times a year and stuff like that, because you, instead of spending that on one movie, you could spread that out over quite a few movies. And I mean, on top of that, the technology, I mean, Mandalorian is shown with the technology they're using with those huge screens that are, back projection and stuff like that, that you can do, Thor: Love and Thunder is going to take on that technology. So that, what does that do to that budget, and how many more movies could you make for the same money using technologies like that, or not making them a sci-fi blockbuster? Instead of making one movie for $250 million, you could make several. So I wonder if, obviously Disney isn't thinking that way for the next couple of years, but if there is going to be a decline in, banking on the billion-dollar movies anymore, if we can make a movie that makes several movies for the same money and still have a decent audience and make decent money, why not do that instead? So maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's absolutely going to happen, because one of the reasons that these big tentpole films even started in the first place was to compete with people staying at home watching television.
Right. Yeah.
So the idea that you had to get people into theaters, you got to give them spectacle, you got to give them the things that the theater has that the television, the televisions of the 70s and 80s or whatever didn't have. And that's, giant scale, right? Mostly, and big sound and big this, and your seat vibrates when you watch a movie or whatever. Yeah. So they definitely, partially to compete with people sitting on their asses at home and watching stuff in their living rooms. So I like to think, and I'm trying to be optimistic, that this will happen, that you'll see the pressure might be off for these movies to come out and do billions of dollars. And, they have to make that much money to break even right. all over the world. So But that's just, you have to keep in mind too, that's just domestically. So if other countries follow suit, I don't know if you can still make the same amount of money in other countries that you could here. And then the other problem that might be, that might stop this kind of thing from happening is you still got to pay people. Like actors are not going to take less money for their movies. So then the pressure's on the film to perform. And yeah, you can have effects and stuff like that. But, a lot of times you're selling the movie based on the cast or in some cases the director. So Tom Cruise or somebody is not going to do a $50 million movie for scale unless he's, doing everything on it. I mean, maybe he will. I don't know. Maybe if that's the only job. So I think there's going to be room for both. Maybe we'll see some more mid-budget movies. That would be great because they used to make cool dramas and they used to make cool things like that, but they don't anymore as many as things that they used to. So I'd like to see all that kind of stuff where it's more script-driven or more, anything more interesting. But, I don't know. I'd like to think it would happen, but then the pessimist in me says that they're just in it for the money and they can just make as much money as they can. And because, the one thing that the Dune director said in his little letter to Hollywood was Warner Brothers was used to be the studio that was artist friendly. It was like the home of art, the home of the filmmaking experience, and it was like had a grand tradition of filmmaking, etc. That's gone.
Right.
Corporations own Hollywood studios now, so they don't give two shits. Like AT&T owns Warner Brothers now.
Right.
AT&T doesn't give a crap about arts. They give a crap about their their bottom line, and they gotta make their money. So I'd like to think so, but boy, I don't know. I'm conflicted a little bit, so I don't know. That was a long answer, I realize, but I got feelings, man. I got feelings about the movies. I hope so. I really do, and I hope we get to go back to the theater. But man, I don't know. It's going to take time.
This kind of feeds into my whole thinking of for the last 9 months or more, we've heard from I've heard from a lot of people that when we get back to the way things were or when we get back to normal, and I've thought from the beginning that that's the wrong way to think about things because things are constantly moving forward, things are constantly evolving and changing, and in my mind there isn't a going back to the way we were. There is, what do we do now and how do we continue doing what we're doing in a way that makes sense. And I say that because, I mean, I'm sure all of us have seen, there's local restaurants, local businesses, small businesses that have either continued through this or they've, shuttered and closed up shop. And to me, the ones that have continued going are the ones that are like, okay, so the way we were doing things isn't going to work right now. How do we do things differently? And I don't necessarily see en masse all of those places going, oh, well, we have, vaccines and everything's cool now. Let's go back to the way we were. They're like, I predict a majority of them are going to be like, hey, what we're doing now is working. Let's be forward thinking and think how do we push that? How we progress that? And I think the same thing is true for movies. It's like the theater model has been, in my mind, not really sustainable for a long time because, constant ticket prices going up, doing things like you said, for blockbuster movies to draw people to the theaters, or let's, IMAX or vibrating seats or, 3D and stuff. And it's like, instead of trying to make what you have stagnant look prettier, think of how to progress it, think of how to move forward. I've seen some theater chains that were just make it better, right? Yeah, well, I've seen some theater chains get into the you go to their website and they're like, you can buy streaming, new movies streaming from us. That's not necessarily the answer, and I don't have the answer, but it's instead of just going, well, we'll close until this all blows over and hope for the best, figure out ways to keep going. And maybe you don't want to. Maybe you're like, yeah, it's been a struggle for years. We're done now. But I don't think there is a go back to the way things were. I mean, that's kind of how technology and life and civilization is kind of gone. I mean, it's not like, well, we got through the whole civil rights thing. Let's go back to the way things were in the 1950s, right? No, we didn't do that. We progressed. How do we move forward? How do we keep this going?
Some people progressed.
Yes, I get it. But I think the same thing is with this. It's like the old models and the old ways we did things were kind of fraying as they were, why would we want to go back to that? Let's figure out how to move this forward. And I think that's, HBO Max and Warner Brothers are doing that. I think Disney is doing that. I kind of like the...
Well, it's clear they can see the writing on the wall now. It's clear that since once Warner Brothers and whatever pulled the plug, or not pulled the plug, but pulled the pin, I guess they call it, and went for it, then Disney's like, well, you know what, we got all this stuff. Now we got this huge subscriber base for Disney Plus. We got to keep them with content. Like Mando ends pretty soon this season, and then in January, WandaVision starts. And then, Falcon Winter Soldier, and then this, that, and the other thing. They keeps on going. So you're right. I think it'll be different. I think there'll still be theaters, like there's still books. There's still people who read books. There's still people who listen to records. There's still people who do, who shoot film for photography like I do. There's still going to be that. Maybe it'll be more of a niche. I don't know. But I think you mentioned something that's interesting. They're trying to do different things to get people in the theaters. One thing I've seen that they're doing is you can come and rent the theater and watch whatever you want.
Right.
They'll show whatever movie they can show, which I think is a great idea. You get your little COVID pod and you go down there and you watch a movie for your birthday or something. That's some way to spin the business model. That's smart. Yes. But the idea that you're going to get, although they still have movie theaters in China, and they have movie theaters in other countries that,
I still think the multiplex thing is going away. The, 12 screen, 15 screen theaters are going to be, they were really struggling to begin with. And, that's why popcorn and drink prices were increasing. That's why ticket prices were insane. I know a lot of the ticket prices are driven by the studios, but it's just like, coming out of this, people are going to be like, well, I can pay $25-$30 for Mulan and watch it over 48 hours at my house at my leisure without some guy sitting next to me talking, and make whatever food I want on my now 85-inch screen TV that I bought during this so I can watch movies. Why do I want to go to a theater that just wants to charge me as much money as they can? Small theaters that are just like, hey, listen, for those of you that like to see things on the big screen, we've got that favorite movie that did well from last year that you really should see on the big screen. And, you can, for $5, you can get a drink and a hot dog, or a drink and popcorn and stuff like that. And it'll only cost you $10 to come in. Those are the kind of things that I think will succeed and do well. And hearing some of the theater owners, especially the chain, multiplex owners, going, well, you guys, you studios owe us, you should take care of us. It's like, why? I don't know. I'm sure you're going to tell me why I'm wrong, but they never should have broken up the monopoly in the first place, right? Studios should have owned the theaters all this time too. So.
Sorry to interject. Does it change your opinions at all? Because this is stuff I know, that there has not been any COVID outbreaks in any movie theater worldwide.
No, because it's still I'm still not interested in going, because I know that just because there hasn't been one yet, who knows? Because I know the community around me, and I know not everyone is going to be like, oh, I'll wear a mask and I'll be safe. It's still a risk. Same thing with, the local malls that we have here in Portland. There's been no outbreaks in any of the malls, except the one or two times I've been like, I'll be brave and go. I'm like, yep, nope, it's time to go because people are being idiots. So,
like anything, the few idiots ruin it for everybody.
Right,
well, I think there'll still be theaters like Alamo, Draft House. I think that'll survive.
See, those kinds of things.
It's more of a niche. It's more of a, like the Revival House. Like you're talking about movies that came out like last year, or when Warner re-releases their movies that are supposed to come out in the theaters. Like they bring Dune back. I keep saying Dune because that's the one I was really excited about. They bring it back at the end of next year or something in a theater at Draft House or something. People will go see it who still want to get the theater experience and get it on the big screen. Like I will, if it's safe, there's a vaccine and everything. Hopefully it's all good. I'll try to do that maybe. But will I see it sooner? No, I don't know. I don't know if I'll go back because I'm kind of used to watching stuff at home. And the truth is that most people, I don't know if most people, a lot of people, let's say, watch stuff on their phones.
Yeah.
Or on their iPads or whatever. The kids these days
episodes of Battlestar Galactica on my phone.
Right.
You've been watching Battlestar Galactica on your phone? See? And you're not a kid, so you're still doing it. So.
And I'm an old man.
Well, I wouldn't say that. You're not that old. But
there is a little tiny theater here in my town called the Orpheum, and it's really fun because I've seen all the most recent Star Wars movies there. but I've also, like, over the past few years, seen Jaws there and Close Encounters and Sound of Music and 2001. I had never seen in a theater before, so it's fun because you can go see current releases plus, you know, the favorites you maybe never have seen in a theater before or haven't seen in a theater in 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you're typical, Dave. I think you're maybe typical of a fan person more than the people who are really outraged about this are the filmmakers and like super hardcore fans on Twitter, probably. You know, like I had to see my movie in a theater. Yeah. I'm upset, and I understand the filmmaker's perspective, and I understand that my union, the Directors Guild, is trying to do something about it. To honor their agreement or their unspoken agreement or the unspoken bond about films that have to be shown in a theater. But, you know, they got to get with the times, too. And, you know, change is hard. So that's really encouraging, though, what you're saying. I think that's great. And I hope that they keep doing that. I think that would be fun if every theater could do that, really. That's maybe a path to survival for them. So
I managed a theater back in way too many years than I want to think about. And the theater's still going now. It's the Rialto Theater in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's a fantastic theater. It's known as an art house theater. There's some more movies that are more probably mainstream and more non-arty that they've had over the years. You'd never see like Avengers Endgame or anything there, but it's a well-known, well-regarded theater in the neighborhood it's in. Actually most famous for its popcorn. People would come by in the summer in the evenings on a walk and come in just specifically to buy the popcorn, which was weird, but it was always full. We did stuff like, and they still do, Rocky Horror Picture Show on Friday nights at midnight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And, you know, occasionally they would do stuff, you know, other movies at midnight throughout the week or on the weekends, you know, special, like, you know, twofers, like, you know, come see the Godfather trilogy this weekend at the Rialto and stuff like that, and came up with innovative ways. And they would, you know, not, like I said, not have the blockbusters, but it was just a community thing, and it was a single theater. We also did, you know, we had a stage, we did concerts and stuff like that too then. I don't think they do that anymore, but it's still going today and still going strong. And those are kind of the things that I definitely support and want to see, the, you know, kind of the community screens where, like, you know, like Dave was saying, you can go see, you know, I've never seen 2001 on a big screen, but I would love to see it in a theater. You know, so
it's pretty cool. I saw it in a theater many times.
So I agree with you. I don't think theaters and the theater experience is going away. I just think there needs to be a different way of thinking about it, just like restaurants, just like malls, just like comic book stores. You're gonna have to change and evolve, or you're gonna go away. And you know, to Mike and to other people that you know, make their living off of multiplexes and theaters and stuff like that, it's I hear you and I understand, and I don't want you to lose your livelihood, but again, I still don't think there is a going back 100% to the way things used to be and the way things were. We got to move forward and think of different ways to do things and keep what we love going, but in a unique way. So that's my rant for the episode. I haven't done
that wasn't really a rant.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I haven't done a rant in a long time.
Do you think people really learn their lesson, though? I mean, I think history has shown us that a lot of times people don't learn their lesson and they go back to the same old habits and they make the same mistakes over and over again. So I think you're right in some respects, but I think people also have a short memory and they're like, "Oh, thank God this COVID thing's over. Woo, we're done.
Well,
now we can go back to the thing."
That's the other thing too. I don't think it's ever going to be 100% over, and I don't think there's going to be that choice this time.
You are cynical.
No, I don't mean it in a cynical way. I don't think there's going to be the choice to say, it's completely gone and we can be 100% the way we were 2 years ago or whatever, at whatever point. I think there's always there is either going to be remnants of it, or it's still ongoing, or, you know, the next whatever is going to come along and it's going to be like
COVID-22.
Yeah. The sequel.
Yeah.
I didn't like COVID 1 through 18. Just.
Yeah, I don't want to see the sequel, but this sequel is terrible. But
I only like the early stuff.
Yeah, I was into COVID before anybody.
Exactly. I liked them when they were an unknown band in Canada.
Exactly.
They played my prom in '89.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, because of COVID, and, you know, people have been. I got to talk about the real reason that I invited Dave on the show.
Yes.
No, I didn't mean to ambush him with this Star Wars and Marvel shit, but it just happened.
Man, I'm
so
happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
No, I know, but I really want to talk about your podcast, and I want to talk about working at home a little bit too. So you are the co-host of the Homework Podcast. So what is the Homework Podcast? And then also, since everyone is working at home for the most part, do you have any sort of like, I don't know, what's your like biggest like tip or whatever for people who are working at home? Do you got one of those?
Yeah, sure. So the Homework Podcast is the podcast by and for people who work from home, which in 2020 is almost everyone.
Yeah, so it's perfect.
It was very prescient 4 years ago when I came up with this idea. So,
Nice.
My biggest tip, if I had to just bring it down to a single one, is define a space that is your workspace. For several reasons. The first is if you work in a single spot over and over again, when you sit down in that environment, the environment itself becomes the cue to work. Think of, you don't feel like going to the gym until you put your gym clothes on, and then you feel like going to work out in the gym. If you can define a space to work, your brain will go, okay, we're in work mode now. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a room with a door that can close, that's great, but you don't need that. It could be as much as this particular corner of your house or the table and chair. Just designate that space as your workspace, and don't do things like watching Netflix or eating your oatmeal in that location, because that will lose its potency as your work location. Other thing is, if you live with other people, let them know that when I am in this space, be it a room or a corner of the table, I'm working, and consider me in the office. I'm sort of inaccessible at this time because I'm doing my job. This is how I earn a living. And once you have that simple conversation with the people you live with, they'll respect it. If you live with very young people, you might want to do a more visible cue, like you put up a little sign, or you put a red bell on the door, or whatever it is, to let the little people you live with know that, so-and-so is unavailable right now. And as soon as I'm done, I'll come and hang out with you and have a great time. So if I had to share one tip, it would be define a space where you live. I'm sorry, where you work. And
where you live or work.
Share that information with the other humans in your house.
No, that's really good. I'm lucky enough to have a space with a door, so I think you're absolutely right. That's a really good one. I don't know if Joe has that. Do you, Joe, or do you have an office? I don't remember.
I do. We have a fourth bedroom. We actually, Chris knows all this, but we actually moved during this at the very beginning of it, at the end of March, and we moved into a place with 4 bedrooms, and the thinking was the fourth bedroom would be an office space. It originally intended to be a shared space for my wife and I, but it's since grown to become my man cave. But yeah, I very specifically set up a desk with keyboard, mouse, monitor, my work computer, and all that, so that I had a dedicated space I could work from, because my job, my day job, that I don't like to talk about on this, but demands a lot, and I need a lot of focus. So it is a space with a door that closes. I haven't quite learned the lesson of not eating in that same space. I usually have my meals and everything in there while I'm working, but that kind of worked out. But yeah, no, it's been very interesting, because the company I work for, we very quickly had to transition to having 9,000 people working from home.
Wow.
And being in the IT portion of that company, it was insane. But we did it, and it was kind of weird in a way, but almost comforting how easy it was to transition to that. I mean, we did have some already, people that worked from home, so it was basically like, well, let's just model that. We'll just do that. Thankfully, our infrastructure sustained that. But yeah, no, I agree, because some of the people that work for me have. Because everything's done on Zoom meetings now, I can see that some people are working from their bed and stuff like that. And I've had a talk with them. It's like, I think it's important that you have kind of, like you said, a dedicated space and a demarcation between this is a work area and everything else is personal and non-work. I would say the greatest thing though that I miss about working from home and not going to the office is having kind of that disconnect. I have, I have like a 45-minute hour commute each way to and from work. And after work, being able to, even though if it was crazy traffic, having, my music cranked up or listening to an audiobook or something like that. And by the time I got home, it's kind of like work was left behind. And I don't really have that,
Yeah,
so.
I totally get it. When the place where you live and the place where you work are literally the same building, it can be really, really difficult.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of like tips or tricks for like having that kind of disconnect or I guess not really physical break, but mental break?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple things. First, when you have your designated workspace, not only does entering that space get you in the mindset to work, but leaving that space can feel a little bit like I'm leaving work behind.
Right.
Especially if you attach a ritual to it. So at the end of each day, each work day, you do the same thing. Maybe you shut your computer down, you close the lid, you turn off the light over your desk. Even if you do these same simple 3 things over and over again, it is not the same as the release you get listening to your favorite music or podcast in the car on your way home. But okay, now I'm doing my end of the day ritual and I'm walking away from this and now I'm in work, life mode.
Right.
It isn't the same. I'm going to say that right now, but it does at least allow you to wind down a little bit. If you can just establish some sort of end of the day ritual, stick to it, and after a couple of weeks, it will be pretty effective.
Cool. Okay. That's good to know. Yes.
I've also heard on the show, Dave, you and Harry have mentioned like mindfulness apps and things like that too, to get you kind of out of your workspace for a little bit and get into a more sort of relaxed state. Like there was one you mentioned in particular, I'm forgetting the name of it. Would you refresh my memory, please?
Yeah, there's a few. I really love Headspace, which is probably my favorite.
Okay, I can remember that
sort of meditation app right now, just because it's so varied in what it allows you to do. Of course, there's a guided meditation to get you through the day, but they just released a work from home series within the app, which is a series of meditations that are just short. Some of them are just 5 or 6 minutes long, to prepare you to begin your workday and to allow you to wind up at the end of your workday. So that's really, really cool. They have some cool like sleep stuff built in for, how it is. You try to go to sleep and your brain says, LOL, no, you're not going to sleep right now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps you're familiar with that. So there's like not only sounds you can listen to fall asleep, but this is the coolest thing. There's this person who will tell you a little story. And I haven't heard the end of any of those stories because I'm always asleep before we get to it, which is probably the way to go.
Yeah, nice.
That's
another
great.
thing I love is Coffeetivity. I think it's coffeetivity.com, where this is something I'll listen to while I'm working, because if I listen to music, it can't have lyrics because I'll end up paying attention to the lyrics and not my work. Coffeetivity mimics the sound of like a bustling cafe or a college cafeteria. It's just that like ambient background noise at this certain level that allows me to block out the sound that's in my house. And it isn't, meaningful. There aren't lyrics to pay attention to. It allows me to just sort of focus in and work. So I recommend both of those things. They're really, really great.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, the Headspace one. Yeah, I like that one a lot. I like the idea that they read you the stories. I try to tell that to my wife. She's like, I don't want someone reading to me when I'm asleep. Will you read to me? I'm like, no.
It's not in a creepy way.
It's not a creepy. Okay, good. Okay.
Oh, well, then never mind. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if it's not creepy, then forget it. Yeah, exactly. No, that's great. Those are really good ideas. I think that they're worth trying for sure. I don't know about you guys, but I have trouble falling asleep at night. So,
yeah.
And yet I can take a nap during the day, no problem. So it's funny. Like I'll be watching something. Like I don't watch this show or this thing to prepare for the podcast, of course, because it's all about work. And then I'm like half asleep or something, and I fall asleep in my chair here in my office. But then if I go to bed, I'm like, I can't fall asleep. Or if I fall asleep, I wake up in the middle of the night for no reason. It's just it doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I'm sure that's not good. But honestly, one thing that's helped me a lot during this time, and I know Dave, you might feel the same way. I don't know if Joe doesn't play D&D, but you and I know you played D&D a lot before you and I started playing together. But I think that has been a super helpful thing for me. dealing with, all the shit that's going on in the world. And I know we've talked about this before in our group too. It's like you can go and play and you can forget a lot of things that are happening in the world. And for that time, it's just you doing a game. And I think that's been super helpful. Has it been super helpful for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pure escapism, and if you want it to be, and I'll get back to that. But for the 2 hours or 3 hours or more that we play, the world that we're living in, I call it Zell, the Zoom hell, is gone. It's out the window and doesn't exist anymore. And you get to be with your friends and laugh and goof around and basically tell a story. I mean, at the end of the day, Dungeons and Dragons and almost every role-playing game I've ever played is just a storytelling opportunity. We're going to sit together for a couple hours and tell a story. And we're all going to collaboratively contribute to the story. And that's what Dungeons and Dragons is. And boy, is that ever fun. Now, if you want to use Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game as a tool to sort of process what you're feeling about the real world, you can do that too. And maybe bring those concerns or issues into the game and see how you and your friends' characters deal with that. But we tend to go the other direction and slay woolly mammoths in a snowy tundra.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me it's tremendously helpful because I love hanging out with friends, I love laughing, and I love story more than anything.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree. I just think, I don't know, I'm not using it necessarily as therapy, but it is the aspect of you're getting together with people and you can't do it in person, obviously, and you're telling the story. But that for me, because I can sort of concentrate on that and focus on that, that has been super helpful. And plus, I think that just being at home a lot and not being around that many people, it's just good to have that kind of interpersonal discussion. I mean, even though we don't even do it on video, it's just voices. It's just you're hearing other people, you're talking to them. It's been, for me at least, it's been really helpful. So, or useful or a happy time. So it's good. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I run groups with kids too, and it's amazing how friendships grow among these kids. I mean, I have kids who are in various states across the country. A few months ago, I had one kid who was in the UK who was playing with us. And now these kids are genuinely friends. And at the end of the session, they say, "Oh, can we hang out and talk about Minecraft?"
Nice.
It's really cute because now they have something to look forward to every week, a chance to basically play with their peers, which isn't necessarily an easy thing to do in 2020.
No, definitely not. I mean, that happens to us too. I mean, we'll get on there and we'll talk about the game, or talk about a bunch of other stuff, Mando or whatever, and that'll happen after the sort of campaign for the day is over. People don't necessarily hang up quickly all the time, so it's really fun. But you said you do games for kids. You were doing it with Reboot Game Lab. That was something that you created or co-created. But are you transitioned to something else, or am I wrong about that?
No, you're right. I've transitioned to Tabletop Hero, which you can find at tabletop-hero.net, which I consider your library of original monsters, encounters, and adventures for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Well, I mean, I've been doing this for years now, running groups for kids, and there's a group that you and I play with, Chris, but aside from that, in the before times, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games with my sort of local neighborhood friends for, probably 10 years now. And in that time, I've written just piles of adventures because, I like to run published adventures, of course, but I really enjoy writing my own adventures and playing them with friends. It's so much fun to write a story and they see your friends use it as a playground. It's just really, something about that is just wonderful to me. And so I have these piles of adventures and creatures and other things that I've written. And at one point I thought, well, I want to share this with the world. And so that's what Tabletop Hero is all about.
Nice.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, speaking as someone who's played in your world, I think it's awesome. I think other people should get a chance to experience it too, and hopefully they will soon. Are you going to do it on? You're going to sell it yourself, or are you going to do it through something like DM's Guild or anything like that, or just?
Yeah. So what I want to do is I've written a campaign setting, which is basically, if you think about it, I've created all the action figures, and I can hand it to a GM and say, "Here you go. Do whatever you want with these." So I've written this whole world that DMs or GMs, because it's platform agnostic, can use to create their own adventures inside this world. I'm going to launch it with an adventure campaign inside the world that is for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. That's the one that you and I are playing through right now. So that will be on DM's Guild. The campaign setting, which I hope to grow over time, will probably be a Patreon thing, but we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome, man.
Cool.
I love the idea, because you and I both did the. I did that thing with the Ashley Warren was on last week, and we did that thing where she has the. Well, I'm totally drawing a blank on the name of the school. That's sad for me, but anyway, it was a great time. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I forget things, and I just talked about it a lot last week, so it's weird that I forgot it now. But anyway, yes, that was super useful, and I tried to create one, and as I told her, I didn't quite finish it, but she said not to worry about that, so that was good. But it's fun to create that stuff, and I just started being a dungeon master again for some other people, and it's a lot of work. So you put a lot of work into it, I know.
Yeah. And gotta say, following Ashley Warren is I feel kind of intimidated, because she's an amazingly talented and gifted person. I listened to the episode last week and said, "Oh man, I gotta follow this."
Oh, you're doing fine. Don't worry. No, she was great. I like the fact that those are the kind of guests that are easy to talk to, because you ask them a question and they have a lot of good answers, which is good. And you've been great.
Oh, yeah.
So don't feel like it's a competition at all. So, but again, I apologize for sort of springing the Star Wars and Marvel stuff on you at the last minute. I know that originally when we talked about this, I was like, I want to talk about homework and all that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm sure everybody knows this already, by the way, Christmas is coming soon.
Yes.
So,
really? I didn't notice.
Yes. Have you heard? Yeah, it's weird. And I was hoping that maybe you guys would have some last minute sort of gift ideas for nerds. You got anything like that for me? Because I got a couple, but if you guys got a couple, that'd be good. Okay.
There is something called, there's a white noise machine made by Electrofan that is really, really nice. And I love having a white noise machine around for two reasons. One, obviously, I can put it on when I need to block out the world and concentrate. If something like Coffitivity that I mentioned earlier or instrumental music isn't for you, I love little like instrumental indie music, which my wife calls wuss rock. I listen to my wuss rock all the time. But the white noise machine is just a little box. Obviously, this makes a few noises, not as many as you might get from an app or something. But I like it for two reasons. One, allows me to concentrate on what I need to do. And two, since you are working from home, you might be taking phone calls or other maybe Zoom meetings or something that you don't necessarily want to broadcast to everyone who lives in your house with you. So you can turn this on to afford yourself a little bit of privacy during that conversation. So it's really, really nice.
Nice.
Joe, I know you're going to say either Marillion's Greatest Hits or a 3D printer, right?
I will spare you the Marillion spiel this week.
It's okay.
But I am actually going to wholeheartedly recommend 3D printing. You guys were talking about DVD. D&D helping you through all this and helping you connect, and for me that's kind of been 3D printing. I mean, a big part of kind of getting me out of the darkness of everything that was going on was getting back to doing this podcast, but it wasn't quite enough and didn't quite get me all the way there, and discovering a new hobby, and not just a new hobby, but one that I greatly enjoy and have just gone wholeheartedly into, like 3D printing was just it's just been kind of amazing, because obviously it's something you can do at home, you can do in isolation, but there is a very thriving, positive community behind it. There's many forums that I'm in. Everybody is very welcoming to new people. Some of the people I work with are new to it, but have also been doing it for years, and they've been nothing but inviting and welcoming, and just being able to print. I'm not printing things that are going to save the world, but it's like, I need something around the house, I'll print that. Or, I've always wanted, a Baby Yoda figure, I'll print that. It's really cool, and it's very creative. I keep buying upgrades for the printer and understanding the mechanics of it, having had to put the whole thing together when it arrived, has just been kind of amazing. So it's been very therapeutic, and very exciting, and like I said, a great community. I've made some online friends asking questions and showing off the stuff I printed and stuff like that. So And you know, especially right now, I see people going, "Oh, I can't find a PlayStation or an Xbox for my kid." It's like, you know, 3D printers, especially the entry level one like I got, is like less than half the price of, you know, a $500 console, and there is you know, a world of creativity behind it. So I know it doesn't match up to Cyberpunk 2077, but it is. It's very fun and creative, and I've learned a lot from it. So that's what I would recommend, is like get a 3D printer for your kids or for yourself, or both. You know, you could spend the same price as a console, and you can each have a 3D printer and have a blast. So yes, that's what
I thought you were going to say, you know, if you're trying to find a console for your kid, that you would 3D print one for them. That's what I thought you were going to say.
Funny enough,
like, I'll make you an Xbox.
Well,
I'll make you a
funny
PS5.
enough, somebody printed off a PlayStation 5 they were going to give to their friend. Obviously it was just the shell, and they're like, "Hey,
well, sure.
I printed this off. I'm going to give it to my friend. Do you think he'll be mad?" It's like, yeah, probably, but
you think he'll be mad? No, why would he be mad about that?
There is like some really cool like stuff you can print. You can add like really simple LEDs and electronics to make them, you know, move and animated and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know. It's a very, very awesome creative world, and I'm glad I'm a part of it now, and you know, it's a good thing. So yeah.
That sounds good. I'm seriously considering getting one for myself, but although I don't know if I'm on the naughty list or the good list this year, but we'll see.
You should also buy a Marillion CD. Just saying. So
I
I'll
should.
throw that out.
Do they
there
have
too.
like a greatest hits like box set? Because I was totally down.
They
for
have
that.
several box sets. They have a sampler you can get.
What's a CD, by the way? I'm not familiar.
A CD. It's
I'm
a
just kidding.
corroded disc, or so, I don't know.
Corona disc?
Yeah.
No, let's not go there.
Yes. What about you, Chris?
Well, you know what?
What do you see?
I shouldn't joke about CDs, because most of the things I was thinking of were like analog kind of tools, because I'm an old school kind of guy. I think for the holidays, there's a lot of good gifts, but I think someone should get you a really good notebook and a really good pen or a really good pencil, because I don't know about you guys, but I like to jot down stuff all the time, and I have notebooks full of stuff that I write down. And I think that you should have a good notebook. I don't think they have to be super expensive, but my favorite notebook right now, and it has been for a while, is by a company called Baron Fig. And I know you, Dave, you had the guy who started Baron Fig on your show a couple weeks ago, which was a great episode, by the way. I totally dug it. But
thanks. Yeah, he was a great guest.
He was. I do love the Baron Fig Confidant. That's my favorite notebook, and I've been using it for a couple of years now. That's it's not super expensive, like I said. It's like $15 or whatever, but it handles pens, it handles paper and pencils and whatever. And I just love it. I've got tons of them. And also field notes, of course, are great little notebooks to keep in your pocket. I got a ton of those too. But everyone needs a notebook, because you're going to have an idea, or you're going to have a thought. You're going to want to jot it down, and you're going to want to think about that later and make a list, or you'd be surprised how many times you want to write something down. It's like, I'll just remember that, because you won't just remember it. It'll never happen.
I won't. I can tell you that.
I won't either. Yeah, so I write it down, and it's been super helpful. I can refer back to it. Like, I'll write down notes for stuff, and then maybe I'll type them in the computer, so I have more of a permanent record for things or whatever. Like I made notes for this show, and I wrote them in my field notes, or in my actually my Baron Fig this time. But then I just put them in the computer for later. Everyone needs a notebook. So one of those two things. Also, field notes. If we're talking about D&D, they're making game journals for characters, so you can jot down all your character stuff. It's like basically a character sheet in a field notes notebook. Or they have a game master, a dungeon master notebook too, for like monsters and encounters and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're super nice.
They're super nice. Although I've kind of transitioned, even though I'm a fan of notebooks, I've kind of transitioned, as I know a lot of people have, to using something like D&D Beyond. And one of my other gift ideas would be a subscription to D&D Beyond, because if you play Dungeons & Dragons, it is invaluable, I think. It is amazing how useful that website is, especially keeping track of your characters and keeping track of the stuff that you do during the game. When you cast a spell, or when you do this. Wow, yeah. I'm really a nerd. And it's just all this stuff. It's so useful. I think you would agree, Dave, that D&D Beyond is super useful, right?
It's a very useful tool. Everything from like it'll do the math for you, so you don't have to. Oh, I forgot to add my proficiency bonus. Well, it did it for you.
Exactly, and no one likes math. Right?
I'm the guy who owns all the books, and I love to show up to game night with my stack of books. So for me to say D&D Beyond is the super tool is kind of big, but it really is.
It is definitely. And then the other thing I would suggest, people who are staying at home, there's a lot of streaming services, and honestly, now that I've seen all the announcements from Disney and Marvel and everything, I was going to say my original pick was going to be HBO Max because I like the fact that they're going to show all the, they were the first ones out of the gate to kind of say, okay, things are different now, and this is what we have to do, and they kind of struck first. So I was going to say, an HBO Max subscription is a nice gift because you're going to get to see a lot of theatrical releases and a lot of films that you wouldn't necessarily see or want to see. But now I'm kind of torn. I kind of think a Disney Plus subscription might be a good idea too. So I don't know. And then also, of course, books. I love books too. So pretty much any book that you like to read is always a good gift too. So those are a few things. I mean, there's a lot of other things, but there's a few things that I think that you can never go wrong. Although you could always give socks and underwear. Everyone loves that.
Yes, exactly. Practical gifts are important.
Practical. I don't know. I don't know what age you guys were, but I got to a certain age where I was like, oh, I don't mind getting socks now. I don't know when that happened, but it's like, oh, that's a nice gift. Thank you. I don't. Well, I do occasionally, but I like to buy I buy from a company called Darn Tough. I don't think they're in Vermont somewhere. So I buy socks from them. They're more expensive socks, but they never ever go bad or ever get ripped or whatever. And if they do, I've never had it happen, but they have a lifetime warranty. So if you do rip the sock, you send it back to them and they send you a new one.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I love it. The socks are really comfortable. And I know this is not a podcast about socks, obviously, but it's just, I'm the kind of person who, if I find something that's really good quality, I'd rather just get that and then not have to buy 20 of them. I'll just buy one and be done with it. I don't know. It's just me. I'm weird.
I would totally listen to a podcast about socks.
Would you? Well, you should create that. I mean, you were smart enough to create the work from home podcast, so maybe the socks podcast is next.
You could call it the podiatry cast.
Call it the what?
The podiatry cast.
Podiatry cast.
Nice, because I get it. That would work. Yes.
That could work. Mike occasionally chimes in if that scares you. Don't be alarmed. Great. So, Joe, any other picks or anything like that, or that was pretty much all?
Yeah,
3D printers. That's all I got?
3D printers. Marillion, because they are an awesome band and the best band on the planet, and I'll not stop saying that no matter how much it annoys you.
It doesn't annoy me.
I would say. No, I was going to be, cheesy and say, the greatest gift is being able to spend time with the people that you're isolated with and figure out ways to make that fun and enjoyable if you haven't already. So, there you go.
So the greatest gift is the friends you made along the way?
Is love, yes.
Oh, that is sweet. So that's a great way to end the show. Dave, thanks so much for coming on the show, because now this is a show about love. I love that.
That's right. See what you brought? You brought this to the show, Dave. Thank you so much.
You brought the love, man. Thanks a lot. So, all right, for Joe Dilworth and our guest, Dave Caolo, I'm Chris Lulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, everybody.